Greetings from the Minnesota Catholic Conference. I'm Ryan Hamilton, Government Relations Associate, and today's stop on our Faithful Citizenship Tour, it actually is taking place virtually. We wanted to provide examples of just how easy it is that we can reach out to candidates and learn about them so that we can make an informed vote. Our previous interviews, we ventured out and met with candidates in person. But a virtual meeting or a phone call works just as well. And so today I've caught up with Mr. Rob Farnsworth over Zoom. Rob Farnsworth is running or campaigning for an opportunity to serve in the Minnesota legislature as the state senator for District 7. So let's jump right in and get to know the candidate. Rob, thanks for joining me. What motivated you to pursue this avenue of service? Why are you running for the state legislature?
All right. Well, thanks for the opportunity to meet with you today. As I've said across the campaign, my wife and I, we have 4 children that we're raising here on the Northland. When we first got, so we both grew up here on the Iron Range. I grew up in Chisholm. My wife grew up in Hibbing. Okay. But when we got married, we were living down in Red Wing. I had taken a teaching position down at the correctional facility there, and she was nursing down at St. Mary's down at the Mayo Clinic. But when we decided to start a family, we knew that this is where we wanted to raise our children. Yeah. So when we moved back, I got active in politics because I've seen, for most of my life, I've seen the Iron Range and the Northland seeing a lot of the economic decline, less jobs, less people, less businesses. And so I told my wife, this is where we're raising our family. We believe it's the best place, but I'm also going to fight to improve opportunities, as far as business and shopping and dining and opportunities for my children to be able to work and live here like we've been able to. And so that's really the big reason that I've been so involved and why I'm running, is to try and keep the Northland the best place to raise a family.
Great. And so we understand that door knocking is a big part of campaigning for this, the level of elected office that you're seeking. What are you hearing from voters at the doors? And how does that align with what you just told me about your goals and what you want to accomplish as a member of the legislature?
Well, the 2 biggest things that I hear at the door, the first one, I think, given the inflation that everybody is experiencing, the biggest thing that I'm hearing is the cost of living in Minnesota. People are really concerned. The price of groceries, the price of gasoline. This winter, we're expecting the price of heating fuels to go up dramatically. And so that's the biggest thing that I'm hearing. And again, that's not just in the Northland, that's the whole state. We need to do a better job of making life affordable for families here in the entire state of Minnesota. And then, of course, the regional topic of mining is the second biggest thing that people talk about, being concerned about the mines closing, concerned that mines of the future aren't being permitted quickly enough, or, all of the legal challenges. And that has a lot to do with improving the economic ability of the next generation to stay here. If there isn't mining, there's not really going to be a whole lot of opportunity for people to be able to stay here. So those are the 2 big things that I'm hearing at the door.
Got it. And so now we'll thank you for the personal info, and now we'll get into some issues that are of specific concern to the Catholic community. So unlike many advocacy groups, the Catholic Church's voice does not fit neatly into typical political distinctions. We do not speak as Republicans, nor as Democrats, nor are we a single issue advocacy group. We do speak on a broad variety of topics considered by our lawmakers in St. Paul. So if elected, you will be entering into a highly partisan environment. How do you plan to overcome partisanship in the policymaking process?
I think, I'm gonna work with people the same way that I have in my teaching career. So I'm a Republican, but I've been in the Education Minnesota Union for about 20 years. I was my local union president when I was teaching Thistledew, which is a correctional facility about an hour north of here. And so, I've had to have those meetings and sit across the table with management and have some tough discussions, but we're able to get things done. Even something as simple as sitting in the teacher's lounge at Hibbing High School, where I've worked for the last 13 years, having some pretty strong disagreements with folks and having some, pretty serious discussions, but then at the end of lunch hour, shaking hands and still being friends. And some of my best friends are people that are Democrats, or at least they think they're Democrats. I'm not sure that they really are. And we still talk on a regular basis, and so we're able to have those discussions. And the thing I've discovered is that we agree on probably 90% of the issues.
Yep.
And so we need to figure out how to find that common ground with people.
Great. So moving into promoting the common good through prioritizing family economics. So according to the social doctrine of the church, the family is the foundational building block of society. And that view runs in contrast to modern secular society, which is leaning towards prioritizing the individual and sometimes even the state. As you know, with a large family, child rearing has never been easy nor cheap, and it's only gotten more arduous as the cost of living, things like transportation, consumer goods, healthcare, housing, have all skyrocketed. And there seems to be a growing perception that marriage and parenthood are just mere lifestyle choices rather than essential vocations. And these perceptions are substantiated by the steady declines in marriage rates and family formation rates amongst the middle and working classes. And so from a big picture perspective, what are some strategies that you think we can employ as a society to elevate the status of the family in our politics, in the media, and in our culture? How can society as a whole better support parents in their roles and responsibilities?
I think this is a good question. And, I mentioned that my family is my main reason for running. And no matter what I do, whether I teach, whether I'm a state senator, I also sell real estate part-time. No matter what I do, I know that my main job is to raise good children, and from the Christian perspective, I want to raise children that love the Lord and that are good citizens and all of that. And so that is my primary job. And all of the other things, whether it's, being a teacher, being a real estate agent, being a senator, those are secondary to being a good father. And I think, one of the things that we need to do is we need to, how do I say this? I think we need to use the word elevate, and I like that. We need to elevate the importance of being parents again. We watch if you watch sitcoms, parents are often portrayed as just a joke, and, the kids don't have to listen to them and they sneak out of the house. I think we really need to do a better job as a society of rebuilding that respect for parents.
Sure.
And I'm not really sure that's a role for the legislature. I'm not exactly, I don't know how they would go about that, except, possibly a lot of the things that schools have been required to do are things that parents should do. And so I think, allowing schools to do what they do best, which is teaching academics, and allow parents to do what they should be doing, which is parenting and teaching a lot of the values to their kids.
And that's my follow-up question. So, just to narrow it down, you're running for a legislative seat. So what specifically or what role does the legislature play in creating the economic conditions for families to thrive, particularly parents who are raising the next generation, raising minor children? What role does the legislature play in supporting the families from an economic standpoint?
Well, I think, as I said, this is an expensive state to live, and not only the taxes, but it's expensive because it's expensive to heat a home in the winter. And, it's expensive even just building a home, because we have to have frost footings and all that. It just, housing is more expensive. And so I think we need to start by looking at the cost of living in our state and trying to lower taxes so people have more money in their pocket at the end of each month. And then I think another thing we could look at is reforming our system of education. And what I mean by that is we've been trying to prepare every single kid for a four-year college and university for about the last 40 years. But what if we prepared kids? So for instance, today I just met with some folks at a nursing home over in Chisholm, and they're having a hard time filling those jobs. Yeah. So what if we had programs in every high school in Minnesota where kids could become a certified nursing assistant, and they can walk out of high school and make a decent wage, rather than being told, well, you have to go to a four-year college and university. So then they go to college, they don't really know what they want to do, and they, take out a whole bunch of student loans. what if we prepare kids for life at high school so that they can walk out, make a good wage, a wage that can support a family? I think that's something that the legislature could do, but we would have to tackle the grad standards, because of course, there's all of these requirements of what kids need to have, and it's very inflexible. And I think we need to make our grad standards much more flexible to local communities, so that, I'm in a mining region. We could have kids that walk out of high school with a welding degree, wouldn't have to go to tech school. They could get a job working at one of the mines, making $70,000 to $90,000 a year right out of high school. If we provided them with that education while they were in high school, then they wouldn't have to go on to tech school. So I think there's some things we can do educationally to prepare people to make the money that they would need to support a family, when it's time to start a family.
Great. Thank you for that. So in conjunction with advocating for policies that promote family formation, our bishops are actively opposed to the legalization, normalization, and commercialization of vice activities and substances that have been proven to undermine the family unit. So a couple of issues in that realm are: would you support or oppose legalizing online sports gambling in Minnesota? And would you support or oppose legalizing and commercializing recreational marijuana in Minnesota?
As I said, I worked for the Minnesota Department of Corrections. And so I had a lot, and it was a juvenile facility. And most of the kids that we had that came through there, they were drug related offenses. Even if it was some sort of a violent offense, they probably were high or drunk, or, I can think of one example of a kid, him and his buddy got into his dad's liquor cabinet, and they had too much to drink, and then they were playing with a gun, and he accidentally shot his friend.
Oh, no.
And I think the downside of legalizing those things are things that we don't talk about. So at this point, I can say I don't support that. I haven't actually really thought about the legalizing sports gambling on that one. That's actually the first time that this question has been asked.
Okay.
I don't know. I think I'm going to have to punt this one because I really haven't thought about it enough. So I would, I don't know. I don't really lean one way or another on this one.
Okay. So now we can, so the next topic is supporting motherhood and women's health in a post-Roe world. Catholics hold that life is sacred from conception until natural death, and that people at every stage of life, even those in the womb, should be respected, protected, and loved. And so given that, the overturning of Roe versus Wade is not the end. For us, it's just the beginning. Abortion is still legal here in Minnesota. And so now more than ever, we believe that we must create a policy environment where babies are respected in law and where women are not led to believe that abortion is their only option. How do you think we can best support mothers before, during, and after childbirth?
I think one of the biggest things that we could do to support mothers, or I should say to support babies, would be adoption programs. I'm pro-life. My opponent calls me extreme, but 71% of the people in Minnesota believe that there should be some limits on abortion. So I'm so extreme that I'm with that 71% that thinks that there should be some limits, whereas my opponent doesn't believe there should be any limits. But I think, if somebody's in a situation where they have an unwanted pregnancy, they need to be made aware that there's more options than just abortion. And it seems like every time those things are discussed, people on the other side of, they just kind of try and dismiss it and say, well, there aren't enough people to adopt the babies. And so I think just educating people that, yes, this is a real possibility. And then again, I'm going to go back to the education part. A lot of abortions are the result of a single woman who just really financially can't afford to take care of a baby. Well, again, what if they get out of high school and they have a degree where they're able to get a job that would be able to support a family? I think that would really help. Because the reality is, we're not going to be able to stop every single unwanted pregnancy. So we want to make sure that babies are taken care of and that the mothers are taken care of. And the other question that I ask a lot of the time is, where's the dad? So two people to make a baby. And I think we need to, make men more accountable for their choices. We can't just say, okay, we're gonna limit abortions or whatever, and women, you just have to deal with the consequences. No, I think we need to say, okay, where's the dad? You played a part in this as well. Just like my wife and I, we decided to have kids, and we decided to have 4 of them. So I have to be, a big part in raising the children, both physically and financially.
Thank you for that. Moving on to the other end of the life spectrum, or natural death, or the dignity of life in natural death. We live in an age of highly advanced medical knowledge that has enabled us to significantly extend life. At the same time, that progress has enabled what we call a throwaway culture, and things such as the legalization of physician-assisted suicide, and that devalues people who most deserve our compassion. And I'm talking about folks with disabilities, the elderly, low-income individuals. For Catholics, physician-assisted suicide is contrary to the dignity of the human person, and legalization of physician-assisted suicide unnaturally hastens death when it is thought that the person's life no longer has meaning or purpose. Would you support efforts to prioritize compassionate alternatives to physician-assisted suicide, such as hospice, palliative care, and would you help us enact policies that promote accessible, holistic, and dignified end-of-life care?
You mentioned disabilities, and of course, most of my professional career has been working with some of the most vulnerable people in our state, whether it was working with kids in corrections who you don't necessarily think of them as being vulnerable, but they're extremely vulnerable, and doing special ed now for the last 13 years in Hibbing. I've made a career of working with people who are vulnerable. Today, again, I mentioned I had a meeting at a nursing home today, and I think we have to do a better job of honoring and taking care of senior citizens, and honoring them for what they have contributed to our society, but also just honoring that they are still human beings that are worthy of respect that human beings deserve. And so I think we need to look at things like funding formulas for nursing homes. We have to take care of our senior citizens. So I guess the quick answer is yes, I would support those initiatives, to dignify life and to dignify the aging process.
Great, thank you. And the final question, dealing with education, you touched on this, but specifically, many children in low-income families are trapped in underperforming schools, as families are not able to afford to choose a school that meets their child's needs. What do you think about the principle that all parents should be given a choice to send their children to whatever school meets their family's needs, and that education resources, tax dollars, should follow the student rather than bureaucratic systems?
I think when it comes to our kids, particularly with their education, every option should be on the table in regards to what's best for the kids. Even though I'm a public school teacher, I know that some kids just don't perform well in public school. Some don't perform well in private school. And so I think we should have, every option on the table, especially in this post-COVID world where kids are struggling, they haven't been in school. The other side just shuts this down and says, no, we shouldn't even talk about it because we have a responsibility to fund public education, which is also true. Constitutionally, we need to make sure that our public schools are fully funded. I apologize. My dog is making a bunch of noise over there in the corner. I lost my train of thought, but yes, I think the short answer is yes, we need to have every option available to help our kids.
Great. And so that was my final question. So thanks for a great conversation. Rob, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you taking time to talk with me and help our Catholic constituents and voters get to know you better. And to my folks out there, as we've seen today, virtual meetings are a quick and easy way to connect with candidates, and election day is just over 2 weeks away. And so it's never too late to reach out to candidates and get to know them. So we encourage you all to use virtual formats as a means to ask questions of our candidates and get to know them and what they plan to bring to the table should they be elected. So thanks again, Rob, and yeah, we'll see you later.
All right, thank you.
Take care.